The UFC is headed back to St. Louis for the first time in 6 years, and they are taking the Knockout King with them. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to break down the entire UFC St. Louis fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and DraftKings plays. But before I do, let's take a look at this super chat that came in on our Wednesday night live stream. This is from Beer, Blood, and Body Slams, and he said, "You guys helped me win $5,000 on DraftKings Rainmakers this past Saturday. Thanks a lot, guys. Cheers." And thank you for not only the super chat, but for letting us know about your winnings. He's not the only person. He is not the only premium member that has been cleaning up. We have put up over $500,000 in winning DraftKings tickets from premium members. These are people who have gone to our website, they've unlocked the premium package, and they're using all the tools, the insight, and more to be successful. $500,000 in the last 6 months is not a coincidence. Every single one of these people have access to the best DraftKings ownership projections in the game. That is preloaded into the DraftKings optimizer. A couple of clicks, it's going to spit a line out for you. You would think that this is a wildly expensive package. You would look at the Awesomos, the Roto Grinders, and these massive companies that we beat with our ownership projections, and you would think we're charging $100 a month. Frankly, it's worth that. But we're not. It is $10 a month. $10 for the ownership projections. $10 for the optimizer. $10 for all the betting content. One single package of $10 a month includes the betting, includes the fantasy, the ownership projections, the optimizer, the tools, the insight, and everything else that we do. We are in the volume business. I am quite literally building the greatest valuable package in this sport. I am building the one-stop shop, everything you have ever needed to have success on a fight weekend, and we're only charging $10 because we are trying to dominate this space. We have well over 3,000 premium members today. Hop on board. It's $10 for a freaking entire month. If you haven't signed up, that $10 will include UFC 302. If you have signed up and you signed up for 301, well, you're good, man. You're Gucci. This is already included. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. It is only $10 for an entire month worth of access. Every single thing that we do included in that package. Let's go ahead and break down this card. I know I said Gucci. I know I said it. And I know I'm probably way too old to be saying it. And frankly, the cool kids might not even be saying that anymore at all. So I apologize. But if you didn't know that, I mean, it was smooth, right? Like I sounded like, oh shit, is Angelo like 30? Damn. Angelo's sweet. Because I said Gucci. We're going to start at the bottom, work our way to the top. The weigh-ins are not over yet. So there may be some dramatics that affect some of this, but you don't need to watch the weigh-ins. We got you covered. Here at We Want Picks, we have Minty Bets. That same Minty Bets that is on the UFC broadcasts giving out her bets, she does a weigh-in recap show for us. She watches the weigh-ins so you don't have to, and she'll recap who looked good, who looked bad, who was first on the scale, who was last on the scale, everything that happens. So you don't need to watch the weigh-ins. You could just watch that couple of minute video, get your download, and then make decisions from there. But let's go ahead and hop in. Opening up the UFC St. Louis fight card, we have JJ Aldrich as a dog taking on Veronica Hardy. First, let's look at the points that she scores. In a win, an underdog short notice win against Montana De La Rosa, she scored 57 points. In a win against Jillian Robertson, in an underdog win, she scored 68 points. She does not cover her salary. She is not a point scorer. The only time she covered any real salary here and made any real amount of money was against Liang Na, who we all know is pretty easily finished at times. Literally, not one single time in the history of JJ Aldrich and DraftKings has she scored enough points to cover her salary. She beat Casey, 81 points at an $8,500 price tag, 68 points on a $7,700 price tag, 25 points, 23 points. The only time she covered was Liang Na, and Liang Na sucks. No offense to the Liang Na loyalist. I do think JJ wins this fight. That's what makes this such a shame. I think JJ can get the cage control, work in an occasional takedown, just be busy, good forward pressure, and win this fight that way. But she's not going to score points, so it almost doesn't matter. It almost does not matter. But she is fighting Veronica Hardy. Veronica Hardy, on the other side, does score a little bit better. 96 in her win against Poliana Viana. 92 in her win against Juliana Miller because she went 4 for 4 in takedowns and had almost 9 minutes of control time. Veronica Hardy is a 5-time Taekwondo champion. And she uses those skills, right? Busy striker, good footwork, okay power. But she's also worked in the wrestling. She got a takedown in her last fight, 4 in that Juliana Miller fight. And she will work forward, squeeze in some takedowns, get some things done, and stay busy. I don't think either one of these women can be in your lineup. I don't think they score well no matter what happens. I do think JJ wins. She's going to be the pick. But you can't. How could you possibly spend $8,000 on her when she doesn't cover her salary when she's $7,700? It's just not worth it. But JJ is going to be the pick. And then we have Kevin Jousset taking on Jared Gooden. This is another tricky spot. Not pick-wise. Kevin Jousset's the pick. Very straightforward pick. This guy's a high-level judo guy. He also can be a patient fighter. He can strike. He can grapple. He'll work in the cage control. He's a big guy who uses his bulliness, if you will. And he does a good job staying out of danger. And that's going to be important here because he's fighting a very dangerous guy. Kevin Jousset, he is a freshman, has scored well in the UFC. You can see here, he scored well, 96 points in the win over Song Kanan, 110 points in the win over Kiefer Crosby. The problem here is, and this is tricky, his outside of the UFC fights and his inside of the UFC fights are a little bit different. Inside the UFC, he landed 134 significant strikes against Song Kanan. That might be the most he's ever landed in any fight ever. If you watch his tape, he's not a high-volume striker. He doesn't stay in people's faces. The Kiefer Crosby fight, Kiefer Crosby showed up, was an absolute dud. Didn't do anything he was supposed to do. And Kevin Jousset blew right through him. Kevin Jousset's $9,200. And frankly, if he has an outing like these two fights, he is worth the money. I do think he wins. The only reason I'm even a tiny bit hesitant with throwing him in a lineup is because watching the tape of him pre-UFC, he's not this guy. He's not this busy striker that's launching people to the ground and submitting them. Early in his career he was, and then he started to become a striker, that in and out, patient kind of guy. But he is fighting a very dangerous Jared Gooden. Jared Gooden is dangerous. This guy's got insane speed, power, athleticism. He's wildly explosive, good takedowns. He's not great at anything, but he's good everywhere, and again, dangerous. That is the key word. The Wellington Turman fight, he really put it on. He was a dog there. $7,200. He put up 99 points. And that's the story of Jared Gooden. If he is able to win a fight, he scores really well. 111 against Stolze. And that's basically it. He went 1-3 in the UFC before being cut. Then he went out on the regional scene, went 4-1. They brought him back on short notice. He lost to Walt Harris. Or sorry, not Walt Harris. Carlson Harris. Is it Carlson Harris? He lost to Harris on short notice. But it's okay. He's durable. He's typically a pretty durable guy. Hung out. Then he came back, beat Wellington Turman in a pretty good dog spot. He is a durable guy. This fight likely goes long. I do think Kevin Jousset can stay out of danger, maybe get in a takedown or two, and win this fight. I do think Kevin is going to win. We'll see if he goes in my lineup or not. He's definitely safe-ish for your lineup, but if we're looking for an optimal, I think we might have some spots at the higher price points that'll score a little bit better. But Kevin's a win. If you're building a cash entry, Kevin should be in that. That takes us to, surprisingly, early on the card, Jake Hadley versus Charles Johnson. I say surprisingly, both of these guys are pretty fun. Charles Johnson's a local guy. Actually built somewhat of a name for himself over the last year or two. But Jake Hadley's a striker. He rounds himself out with slick BJJ, decent wrestling. He's got solid boxing, good timing. The takedowns are aggressive. The BJJ is aggressive. He's a very good fighter. He's a very good fighter that has had success on the regional scene and now here at the UFC. He is coming off this loss to Cody Durden, but he was just completely out-wrestled in that fight. That's all that was. He was taken down, controlled, taken down, controlled, taken down, controlled, and it was just a bad matchup for him. He couldn't defend the takedowns, and that was just going to be a tough night, and that's exactly what happened. But overall, he is a good dude. He is dangerous. He'll find submissions. He can strike as well. He's taking on local guy Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson is interesting because he showed up to the UFC short notice. Muhammad Mokaev took him down, I think, 185 times. Then an insanely close fight with Zhalgas Zhumagulov that a lot of people think Zhalgas won. Then he beats just a used up, unretired Jimmy Flick. Fine. Lost to Ode in a close fight. Lost to Durden in a fight where he was taking down a bunch. Lost to Rafael Esteban in a fight where he was taking down a whole bunch. And we were pretty much like, okay, this dude's done. He might not be UFC caliber. Like, he's always in these fights. The only time he's really steamrolled is in the fights where he's just taken down a gazillion times and can't get up. But maybe he's just not UFC caliber. There's just something there that he's just not able to win these fights. And he came back, he fought Azat Maxim. He was a big dog at 7,300 points. And he was able to pull off that win. He almost died a few times. He was almost knocked out. He was almost submitted. Things were not going his way. But then he put it together. His takedowns looked spectacular. His takedown defense got really good. The striking looked really good. And all of a sudden, Charles Johnson looked phenomenal in that fight. He still only scored 73 points. Charles Johnson is not a guy that covers his salary. He should not be in your DraftKings lineup, win or lose. The only time he covered his salary is when he smoked a used up Jimmy Flick. Outside of that, even in the wins, Zalgas 83 points and Maxim 73 points. He was a $7,300 underdog, and he just touched his salary. And obviously, if you spend $7,300 on somebody and they win, you're expecting them to lose when you throw them in there. He went. That is great. My point here, though, $7,600, I don't think he covers that in a win. I do think he's a good underdog, but without the grappling, this is just going to be jabs and pitter-patters and lots of movement. No real knockout or anything like that. I think this fight goes to the distance. I think Charles Johnson probably scores 70-ish points if he wins. And if he loses, he's going to score 30, 35, maybe. So you can't have either one of these guys in your lineup. I do think Jake Hadley wins this fight, but I totally understand the case for Charles Johnson to be everybody's favorite underdog this week, especially after that last performance. He looked absolutely spectacular. The only reason I'm leaning Jake Hadley is outside of the fight against Maxim. We have not seen Charles Johnson look very good. He doesn't look bad, but he hasn't looked very good until this fight, where we have seen Jake Hadley have moments of like, ooh, this guy is good. Charles Johnson's fought the higher level of competition, but he's lost to them. Jake Hadley basically out-wrestled. Outside of that, he's had some success. So this should be a really fun fight. This should be a good fight. It's nice and early on the card, but I'm not going to touch them for DraftKings Fantasy. Then we have Billy Goff taking on Trey Waters. Billy Goff's another guy that everybody loves as a dog. And I get it. He was a dog in his last fight. He got the knockout, more than covered his salary, 117 points. And I get wanting Billy Goff to win this fight. And first of all, he's from Connecticut, one of the best states in this country. Second of all, he's a well-rounded guy, clean boxing, good solid clinch, very good wrestling, very good grappling if he decides to use it. If he gets you to the ground, he's got good top control and good pressure with solid cardio. He's an absolute dog. He'll make a fight ugly. He'll keep it dirty. He'll stay in your face, and he will fight for your money. If I have to pick a dog between Billy Goff and Charles Johnson, it's tricky because Charles Johnson is probably more likely to win. But Billy Goff will fight his ass off and put up more points. If they both lose, Billy Goff will put up more points. If they both win, Billy Goff will put up more points. And I can trust Billy Goff to fight for my money. He's a dirty savage that will continue to come forward no matter what. But he's got a tall task ahead of him. Literally. That was a dad joke. Trey Waters is tall as shit. This guy is 6'5" at this weight class. 6'5" at this weight class is nuts. And he's not some weird, lanky, awkward body having Sean Woodson. He's like a normal person with normal proportions, and he looks good. And that's what makes Trey Waters a bit dangerous because he is tall. He is long. He does pump a jab. He does have some power. He will get cocky. He'll play some games. He'll keep his hands low, but he's got good footwork. He is dangerous. He's a lot of problem for people that cannot work their way inside the reach. He just beat Josh Quinlan. Only put up 78 points in that win because he's a striker and he didn't get the finish. And that's how DraftKings scoring works. If you're not dropping people, and you're not working in a bunch of takedowns, you don't score that well in DraftKings unless you are just the busiest person on the planet. Billy Goff is a very good underdog for DraftKings Fantasy. I do think Trey Waters is going to be a little too tall, a little too long, and I think Billy might have some trouble with it. But I know for a fact Billy's going to be coming forward, throwing bombs, trying to get a takedown, and fighting his ass off for my money. And that's the type of guy that when I'm looking at underdogs, when I need to free up some salary in DraftKings, Billy Goff, I'll take him over Charles Johnson any day of the week, especially the upside in a win is a little bit higher. So I'm going to go Billy Goff for DraftKings Fantasy, but the straight up pick, if I have to pick a winner, I do think Trey Waters and that length might squeak out a decision. Then we got Tabatha Ricci taking on a returning Tecia Torres, or now Tecia Pennington. Tabatha Ricci historically is a very good grappler who can get you to the ground, submit you if it's there. If not, get the takedowns, get the control, beat you up on top. Her striking is quickly improving. She did just lose a striking match to Lupita Godinez, but honestly, that was a very close fight. The striking exchanges weren't that far off, and I think a lot of the reason Tabatha Ricci lost this fight is because she did have failed takedown attempts. She attempted 6 takedowns, didn't get any of them, and all the judges see is somebody not being successful at something. So she's missing the takedowns, and even though she's having success striking, well, that's sort of washed away with the missed takedowns. Tabatha Ricci is a very good fighter. She's a very active fighter, and that loss to Lupi is a quality loss. Before that, she beat Jillian Robertson. She beat Jessica Panay. She beat Poliana Viana. She beat Oliveira. And in her very first fight, I think it was her UFC debut against Manon Fiorot, and we know Manon is absolutely nasty. She is taking on a returning Tecia Torres, now Tecia Pennington. Tecia Pennington has been out for 2 years because she had a child. And I'm telling you right now, women who leave, have a child, and come back multiple years later have not been successful in the UFC. Outside of Sarah McMahon, the Olympian, I cannot think of a single person who has done it successfully. Mackenzie Dern got her ass kicked. Miesha Tate got her ass kicked. There's others on this list. Let's see. Nina Nunes got her ass kicked. It is not good, or historically it has not been good for new mothers in the octagon. This is a fist fight. These women's bodies grew a human being, then pushed the human being out, and then had to get their bodies back to what it was a year ago into fight shape. Tecia Torres, 2 years of ring rust, the body transformation. There's so much going on, so much to worry about. I don't think Tecia Torres wins this fight. I do think Tabatha Ricci wins this fight. And if you also think Tabatha Ricci wins this fight, that means you think she's probably going to get some takedowns, have some control time, work on top, and she scores well in those wins. I think Tabatha Ricci wins. I do not think Tecia is a very good dog at $7,900, even though historically she's a good fighter. This loss to Mackenzie Dern was a very close split decision loss. She beat Angela Hill. She beat Hughes. She beat Fortino. Lost to Rodriguez, Weili, Jurjacek, Andrade. These are some of the best women on planet Earth, especially at the time that she fought them. She's a very good fighter that has been fighting at a very high level. She is the literal better fighter in this matchup, just skill for skill. But the time off, the having the baby, all of that stuff, this is not a forgiving sport. And I think Tabatha Ricci is just going to come forward, stay in her face. She's very physically imposing, get the takedowns, work the jab, do all that stuff. Tabatha Ricci is going to be the pick, and I think the price point is okay for a DraftKings lineup. Then we have Terrance McKinney taking on Esteban Ribovics. I said that like a game show host. Terrance McKinney is one of the tougher people to break down. First of all these fights are finishes. No idea if this dude can fight long. Second of all, he's the more talented fight in pretty much every single matchup he's ever been in. Literally. In literally every fight, Terrance McKinney's the more talented guy. He's probably faster. He's probably stronger. He probably has the better wrestling. He's got the more dangerous striking, but he doesn't have the cardio. He's got a little bit of quit in him, and his chin doesn't hold up. And that's not, he can't help the chin. The other stuff he can help. The chin, he cannot help. But if he's on, he always has success early. He beat Sadikov in that first round before the second round didn't go his way. He beat the shit out of Drew Dober before it didn't go his way. I think Bonfim is the only person that beat him the entire fight. And that fight, Bonfim was a savage. Outside of the Bonfim fight, he either won the fight or was dominating early, and then things turned. The Sadikov fight, this was a second round. The Sadikov fight, he came out, wrestle heavy game plan, took him down, did all the right things, and then things didn't go his way in the second round. And that's what makes him so tough to break down, because $7,300 for a guy that puts up points, over 100 points in every single win except Faraz Ziam, for a guy that puts up points, it's always a little tricky. It's always a little tricky. He is taking on Esteban Ribovics. Esteban Ribovics is very good. He's not nearly as dangerous as Terrance McKinney. Not nearly as dangerous, and that does help a little bit. because that means, maybe Terrance McKinney won't get finished early and he will continue to have success. Or maybe he could somehow win the first 2 rounds and survive the third. But Esteban Ribovics is very good. He's an impressive striker. He's got sneaky power. His strikes are tight. They're short. They're accurate. He's got that high, tight guard. He works forward, picking shots. And despite his impressive knockout highlights, he's not just a striker. And those knockout highlights are on the regional scene, not here in the UFC, obviously. He's not just a striker. This guy's got good BJJ. He's got good, clean shots. Like shoot doubles right up the middle. He'll work a body shot. Upper body takedowns if he has to. Esteban Ribovics is very good. Esteban Ribovics probably wins this fight. And as we've seen, if Terrance McKinney loses, he gets finished. But there's just something about the matchup. I'm not going to put Esteban Ribovics in my lineup at $8,900. Even though that's going against history. History says if this guy wins, he'll win by finish because his opponent gets finished. Terrance McKinney is an appealing dog. There's just something about it. He's an appealing dog who, if he does win, he scores points. He always has success early. He's an appealing dog, and if you don't have the nuts, if you're not going to lay your nuts on the table to put Terrance McKinney in your lineup, totally fine, totally get it. Very unreliable guy. I'm just not trusting Esteban as an $8,900 favorite for whatever reason. Then we have the prelim or featured prelim. I don't know. Why did I struggle to figure out the featured prelim? We got Viacheslav Borshchev taking on Chase Hooper. Viacheslav Borshchev is the Team Alpha Male striking coach. He's a fantastic striker. He's got a legitimate professional kickboxing career. And then he transitioned to MMA. He's got a great jab, solid power, fantastic kicks. Everybody knows he's such a good striker, they try to take him down. And he does get taken down a lot. But he also gets right back up. You don't get taken down a lot if you don't get back up. He gets back up. He's got great get-up game, great scrambles, all of that. Good takedown defense-ish. Very good submission defense. But the get-up game is what's important here. Because he's not a fish out of the water if he's taken down. He can defend. He's got plenty of cardio to work his way back up. On his feet, he is very, very dangerous. Very dangerous on his feet. He's coming off that draw with Sadikov where he had some early success and then he got dropped and things didn't go his way, but he banked enough to get those 2 rounds before losing a 10-8 round, which made it a draw. He is taking on Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper, just a few years ago, was a skinny little boy, and it was just funny how unassuming he looked and all those things. Well, now he's 25, 26 years old. He's starting to fill out, as ridiculous as that sounds, and he's starting to put things together, starting to feel himself a little bit. We've seen some striking improvements. We've seen him come forward now. We've seen him try to shoot takedowns. The takedown accuracy is still a very low 22%, but he's a grappler. He wants these fights on the ground. He's very dangerous on the ground. He submitted Jordan Levitt. He didn't even need to get the takedown. Jordan initiated a scramble. Chase made it happen, got that submission there. Before that, he beat Fiore, which, okay, no big deal. I do think Viacheslav Borshchev wins this fight. And the question becomes, can he finish Chase Hooper? Well, Steve Garcia did. Steve Garcia made it ugly, stayed in his face, beat him up a little bit. And I think Viacheslav Borshchev might be able to do the same. I think Chase Hooper should be in a lineup or two if you are chasing those large tournaments. The GPP, the guaranteed prize pool, multi-entry. You can put in 150 entries for $1, whatever it is, 50 cents. I think you need some exposure to Chase Hooper. I do think Viacheslav is a safer pick. I think he gets up if he's taken down. I think he wins the striking exchanges, potentially breaks Chase Hooper, who we have seen get broken before. That takes us to a very exciting heavyweight fight. We got Robelis Despaigne taking on Waldo Cortes-Acosta. I think you got to have Robelis in your lineup. I think you do. This is by far his toughest fight, by far the biggest stage, and I still think he wins. He might not. We don't know much about this guy. He won this fight in 18 seconds. His last 4 fights are a combined 38 seconds. But I still think he can win this fight. And certainly if he does win, he's going to put up points. 128 points because he got that very quick knockout. He got a knockdown, the finish, and they gave him the quick win bonus. So he scored 128 points. This guy is a 6'7" beast. He is an Olympic medalist in Taekwondo. He's got the footwork. He's got the power. It's insane what this guy is doing. The question mark, though, is what happens if this fight is longer than 30 seconds? What happens if he's taking that? We don't know answers to any of that. We have no answers to any of those questions because it has never come down to that. He has just dominated people, dominated them almost instantly. He's taking on Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Waldo Cortes is actually a pretty good fighter. He's a very tough guy. We've seen his legs get destroyed. It didn't even matter. He's athletic. He hits kind of hard, right? He's a heavyweight. He's not typically a one-punch guy, but he hits kind of hard. He's got decent footwork. He's athletic. He'll pump that jab. He'll sort of stay there. But he's kind of low volume, and he dances around, starts to feel himself a little bit. I think Robelis just getting in his face immediately, being humongous, throwing insane power. I think that is going to be a problem for Waldo. Heavyweights typically shouldn't be in a cash entry because they're very unreliable, but I think we can rely on Robelis here to get this done. Waldo's durable. We don't quite know how durable because he's never been hit with somebody or by somebody that hits as hard as Robelis does, but I'm going to shoot my shot here. I'm going to go Robelis. I am going to put him in my lineup and chase that quick win bonus that he has gotten in pretty much every single fight. Then we have Alex Caceres and Sean Woodson. I do not think Alex Caceres wins this fight. I get that he's $7,100 and that is appealing. And I get that he does score really well in his wins because he's so active. He's such a busy guy. He comes forward. He'll shoot some takedowns. He'll throw a lot of strikes. Like, he'll try to make some stuff happen. So he does score pretty well. Not insanely well, but for the most part, he covers his salary. Not every single fight, but a lot of that has to do with matchups. But Alex Caceres, or Bruce Leroy, as we affectionately know him, has been in the UFC for a very long time. He came through the Ultimate Fighter 13 years ago. He has fought some of the best people on the planet in his career. I mean, let's look through this list. Pettis, I think that was Sergio. Faber, Rivera was great at the time. Miller, Kron Gracie, Chase Hooper, Springer, Kevin Kroom, that's an all-timer. But point being, Alex Caceres has been here for a long time. Alex Caceres has high-level experience. He has quietly grown into himself and fought a ton of people. And he's flipped from young, fun Bruce Leroy to older veteran who's got to get a few wins in before his career really starts to drop off here. But I don't think he's going to be able to get this done because he's taking on Sean Woodson. Not only is Sean Woodson a former professional boxer that showcases those skills in the octagon, Sean Woodson typically scores well and wins. He not only has a few finishes, but look at this win over Dennis Bazooka. And this fight might look exactly like this Dennis Bazooka fight, where Sean Woodson is having success in the striking, defending the takedown, squeezes in a takedown or two of his own for no reason whatsoever. And Sean Woodson is very good guy. I sounded like a foreigner there. Sean Woodson is a very well-rounded fighter is where I was going. He's good everywhere. He's got very good offensive striking. His defense is spectacular. We have seen him shoot his own takedowns. He has 5 in his last 2 fights, and he just beat Charles Jourdain in Canada. In Canada, he defended the takedowns. In Canada, he got his own takedowns. In Canada, he landed more significant strikes. And while he only scored 73 points, he did cover his salary. $9,100, Sean Woodson. That's a high price tag. He has only covered that 2 times in the UFC. One was a finish over England. I don't think he gets a finish here. And the other one was over Bazooka, where he worked in some wrestling. It's a coin toss if he should be in your lineup or not. But as far as picking a winner, I'm very, very, very confident in Sean Woodson to win this fight. I don't know how Alex Caceres wins it. He's not going to get the takedowns. He's not going to outstrike him. So I don't know how Alex Caceres wins this. Sean Woodson is going to be the pick. Then we have Mateusz Rębecki, $9,400. Yes, please, in your lineup. I could end the breakdown right here, but I won't because I'm a good guy. Honestly, I'm a good guy. I get it. I'm sarcastic. I can be a bit aggressive, kind of a bully, but I'm a good person. And so is Mateusz Rębecki. He is going to win this fight. He's fighting a 40-year-old. Mateusz Rebecki's got power in his hands, plenty of cardio, very good submissions, insane wrestling. He wins this fight anywhere he wants to. Literally anywhere he wants to. He scores insanely well in every single fight that he's in, and that's because he can finish fights. In a decision win, 104 points. In the finish wins, 122, 112. He can get takedowns. He can land power. He can snatch up a submission. Mateusz Rębecki wins this fight. He's fighting 40-year-old Diego Ferreira. And Diego Ferreira, while he's not terrible, he just knocked out Michael Johnson with one strike and put that dude out. Bad. He also beat Pettis all the way back in 2020. But he is a guy that gets finished. He is a guy that gets taken down. He's got decent scrambles. He'll get back up, but he gets taken down. This is just a perfect recipe for Mateusz Rębecki to score 10,000 points in your DraftKings lineup. And that's why if I'm looking at a Sean Woodson at $9,100, I'd rather spend the $94 on Mateusz Rębecki and then, have to get a little more aggressive with an underdog to make up for it. Then we have Alonzo Menifield taking on Carlos Ulberg. This is a tricky one because Alonzo Menifield is the better MMA fighter here. He is an MMA fighter. He has good wrestling. He has good striking. He is good everywhere. He has poor decision-making is the problem. If we go back to that first Jimmy Crute fight, he's beating the shit out of Jimmy Crute. He had that dude almost knocked out cold, dead to rights, and he's holding him against the cage. He's working in takedown. It makes no sense. Why are you making those decisions when you have this dude almost finished? Makes absolutely no sense. If you could trust Alonzo Menifield to come forward, use the wrestling, shoot the takedowns, land the big power, shoot the takedowns, and do all that, then Alonzo Menifield's got to be the pick, $6,900. He could absolutely 100% win this fight and score really well. Problem is, he might just strike. He makes weird decisions. He's fighting Carlos Ulberg. Carlos Ulberg is the better striker, former professional kickboxer. He's obviously evolving as an MMA fighter as well. We saw the submission in that Da Woon Jung fight. He's coming off a 4-fight finish streak. The only loss on his actual record, including in the UFC, was Kennedy Nzechukwu. I'm about to cry because he was beating the crap out of Kennedy Nzechukwu, beating the crap out of him. And then as he was backing up, he got caught with something and then he was finished. But outside of that, he has looked very, very good. That very next fight, he took his time with Fabio Cherant. I think he got knocked out and he was like, I can't get too aggressive here. And then he got that win under his belt, his first UFC win. And then he started to feel himself and he's really, really come into his own. $9,300. While he does cover that in the wins, I'm going to avoid that 9,300. I'll stick with Mateusz Rębecki at 94. I'll stick with Robelis at 96, and I'm going to go that route. Those will be my two very expensive guys, and then I could build the rest of my lineup with middle of the pack, more affordable people that I think are going to win. I do think Carlos Ulberg wins this fight, but that's based solely off the fact that Alonzo Menifield makes some interesting decisions inside of fights. Co-main event, Joaquin Buckley and Nursultan Ruzeboyev. This is at 170 pounds. Both of these gentlemen were fighting at 185 pounds. Joaquin's been at 170 for 3 fights, 3 wins in a row at 170. This is looking for his 4th win at 170. Nursultan, on the other hand, just fought at 185 a month ago. Both of these gentlemen fought a month ago on January, February, March. I had to do it like this. I'm so sorry. March 30th, they fought at UFC Atlantic City. And now it's a very quick turnaround. Joaquin Buckley asked to be on this card and they granted his wish. It wasn't a main event, but it's close enough. Literally as close as you can get without being on it. But Joaquin Buckley at 170 pounds has looked phenomenal. His in and out movement has been great. The weight cuts have been great. Tons of energy. The cardio in the Morono fight was totally fine. He's still got the power, still has the speed, still has the movement. If anything, he has more movement than ever, the way he's moving in and out, side to side. The way he was leaping in against Vicente Luque was spectacular. He looked incredible in that fight. He's taking on Nursultan Ruzeboyev. I did see this weigh-in. He made weight. He looked pretty good. He's a massive dude. He's 6'5", making 170 pounds, and he's done it before. But at 170 pounds, he has 8 losses. 7 of the losses were at 170. He loses the power. He loses the cardio. He can't push a pace at 170 pounds. That is a little bit concerning here, but he's a guy that I believe in for whatever reason. On the regional scene, you'll see tons of takedowns out of him. He's very long. He does have the power. He knocked out SD Dumas, and there was eye poke controversy in there, but he knocked out SD Dumas. He knocked out Diego Ferreira, who's like Bruno Ferreira, who's a scary guy. The Hulk. He knocked him out in his UFC debut. I think he will entertain the striking. I think Joaquin Buckley's going to be much faster. Joaquin Buckley's going to connect, and Ruzeboyev's like, yeah, fuck this. I'm going to the wrestling, and Ruzeboyev will have some success in the wrestling. I'm just going to tell you to pick your side here. I am going to be on the Ruzeboyev side. I have been all over this guy for his last couple of fights. I'm just going to continue to ride that train, even though I am fully aware things are stacked against him. Joaquin Buckley has looked fantastic. Ruzeboyev does not do well at 170, so I get it. It's all stacked against him, but I don't know why he's a guy that I believe in. He's on this 10-fight win streak. 2 finishes in the UFC. I think he's also starting to feel himself. This is a fantastic co-main event. And then we have the main event. We have the knockout king, Derek Lewis, taking on Rodrigo Nascimento. It's such a pain in the ass because $8,400 is such an appealing price point for a guy that when he wins, he scores points. The problem is he's an insanely low volume guy. Derek Lewis throws like no punches whatsoever and then knocks you out. Rogerio de Lima, he knocked him out almost immediately. He scored 133 points. That's sort of a bad example because he knocked him out literally almost immediately. A flying knee across the octagon. We never see him do one before. He did it fine. The Daukaus one, we can go back a little. 14 significant strikes. Curtis Blades, that was the second round. He landed only 7 significant strikes. 20 significant strikes in a fight that went to a decision. He's such a low volume guy. But he has that insane power. One punch can put you out. He is the all-time knockout king. He's taking on Rodrigo Nascimento. Rodrigo Nascimento is okay. He's not great anywhere, but he is a reliable guy. He will be busy with the hands. He will try to work you against the cage. He will try to work takedowns. It's a tough situation because Derek Lewis is a guy that I root for. He's a guy that I love to watch. I want him to get 100 more knockouts and literally just like build a Mount Rushmore of this guy has knocked out more people than anybody has ever or will ever do in the UFC. I want that to happen. But you just can't trust Derek Lewis. He just waits. He waits. He's here. He waits. He waits. Big power. Did it hit? Yes, I win. Did it not? All right. Well, I'm probably going to lose. And that's the situation we're in. But Rodrigo Nascimento isn't exactly the beacon of durability. He's not insanely fast. He's not insanely good at wrestling. He's not Jailton Almeida. But he is a guy that you can trust. You can expect him to lay on some strikes. You can expect him to work against the cage. You can expect him to try to get some takedowns. Yes, Daukaus knocked him out. And the easy math is if that bum who's no longer in the UFC, Daukaus knocked him out, then Derek Lewis is going to knock him out. And that's not a leap. That's not a ridiculous leap. That logic is decent. I think Rodrigo Nascimento could win this fight, but I'm not confident enough to throw him in a lineup. I'm just not. He doesn't score that well in his wins anyway. And Derek Lewis showed us that even if you take him down, he can avoid being submitted. So I am going to fade Nascimento. I might throw Derek Lewis in there just literally for the potential of a knockout at that $80-something price point. For a cash entry, not too much risk for a single entry cash game. But if you're building a large tournament entry, you need some exposure to Derek Lewis. I don't think Nascimento at $7,800 is going to cover his salary even in a win. Unless he just turns in the Jailton Almeida and gets beautiful takedown after beautiful takedown. But he couldn't take down Dontel Mays. Guys, that is the breakdown. Join Beer, Blood, and Body Slams with his $5,000 ticket. Join the thousands of other premium members that have put up over $500,000 and become a premium member today. You just go to WeWantPicks.com. You click Become a Member at the top. You unlock the ownership projections. They're preloaded in the optimizer. You get all sorts of other tools like the DraftKings cheat sheet. This is preloaded with the ownership projections, the scoring projections, if they're a leverage play, if they should be in your cash pool, if they should be in your GPP pool. You're also going to get the Slate Sleuth. This is a whole suite of other content, and that is loaded. The weigh-ins haven't happened yet, so this isn't done. This will be loaded with who looks good in what spots, what opportunities you should have, what you should be doing with certain fighters. The amount of tools, insight, information that we have for you, not only for DraftKings, but for FanDuel and betting is insane. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. Good luck this weekend. I'm so glad we have some fights in front of a live crowd.